Assalamualaikum, dear students. So, in second video, we are going to continue from the topics that we discussed last time. When we talk about that, now we have to look at the factors that change or affect weather and climate. For example, if we are talking about weather or if we are talking about the climate, specifically it involves climate. Since it's a long-term change, so it has many factors which play an important role in it. That they can influence it, reduce it to a certain level, change the nature of the climate, and also can play an important part. So, if I show you from your book, which is Pearson Discover Geography, of book one, for grade six, first of all, it gives a depiction of what we were discussing last time, that how the warm air rises and how the cool air sinks, because both have different pressures. So we have already discussed that part. Now, the first factor that influence or that affects or that matters is the latitude. The factors which affect the temperature or the pressure or the rainfall. These three things are very much associated when we talk about the climate. So first one is the latitude. When we talk about latitude, latitude is the natural presence of the earth, or you can say the placement of the earth plays a huge part into this. So as we know that earth is divided into different zones. So if I try to draw the zones on the already available picture, then it would look something like this. We know that there's a 0 degree equator line. On above, we have 30-degree tropical areas in north and in south. Then we have 60-degree temperate zone. And upper than that, there is up north pole in the north, and very south, bottom of the earth is the south pole. So this is the division uh, of the earth climatic zones, climatic regions. Talking about that, each climatic zone or each zone has different intensity of receiving sunlight and has different pattern followed by it when it comes to the rainfall. Why is that? Is because equator receives most of the sunlight, most of the warmth from the sun. Also, at the same time, the sunlight that reaches this area are more direct, and they absolutely reach these parts. So it oftenly creates an area of low pressure and high pressure, which results to more precipitation. That's why this area has more rainfall. So if you look at the line, it also shows that it takes less time for the solar radiation to reach the equatorial or the central part of the world. Whether it takes larger wavelength, larger energy to reach the north and south pole. So latitude plays an important part. The areas which are at the center, 0 degree, 10 degree, 20 degree, 30 degree, they are more warmer, and the areas which are 60 degrees, 70, 80, and 90 degrees north, they receive less rainfall. So latitude has a pattern. We can summarize our discussion by saying that areas in the center are more warm, and areas in the pole or in the corner or the bottom or the top of the earth are more cooler regions. So this would be the first relation that we are seeing. Second factor that affect the temperature is a seasonal difference. Every season defines that what is the angle at which the earth is placed with reference to the sun. So when we look at it, seasonal differences shows us that how much temperature or warmth certain area contains. For example, if you're talking about summer, relatively we know that they are going to be warm. So we know that the weather in this area, since the sun receives most of the sunlight at that time in that region, is going to be summer. So it is one perspective of the season. The other one is the winter. So in winter, we know that the sunlight in those part of the world which are experiencing winter is sunlight is not enough. So the warmth does not reach there, and it results to the cooler temperature. So seasonal variation or seasonal differences in different area identifies the temperature difference in both areas. And last factor which impacts the most of the temperature is the aspect. The direction in which a feature faces is known as its aspect. A feature that faces the sun will generally be warmer than the one that does not. The thing is simple that if any part of the world receives most of the sunlight warm, then it is going to be warmer. Temperature is going to be higher. And then to explain the seasonal variation in further detail, there's a map given on the book which gives a clear description of what it means. So as we can see, the yellow portion right there, it receives most of the sunlight. It is sun facing area, so it is going to be warm. Well, the other area is going to be cold area. Same goes for the second diagram where the yellow area on the other side now shows the sunlight facing area, and the other side is going to be cool region. The next factor that affects the temperature is the altitude. So altitude is the height from the sea level. So when we look at the altitude or elevation, it means that how much slope a certain area has, or how much slope does a mountain have. Okay, so it involves this. But when we talk about the altitude is basically the same thing as the latitude, लेकिन in a different perspective. जैसे हमने देखा था कि when we move up from the ground, the temperature lower down. तो इसी तरह when we look at it, uh, as we move upward in the atmosphere, the temperature goes down. Temperature कम होता है. तो more altitude, less temperature, and higher pressure. So this is what average thing we see. This is the most important thing. So we should know this relationship, or we must understand this. Then the next, okay, I can explain it further with the help of this, with the help of this diagram, which is given there, 6.4 source, the relation between increasing altitude and changes in the climate. So as we can see, the altitude is increasing, decreasing temperature, increasing wind exposure. So जैसे जैसे altitude is increasing, is 2100 to 5800, the temperature decreasing, temperature is decreasing, and the wind exposure, it is increasing. So this is normally a pattern that we see. Okay, so we can also help it, we can also explain it with the help of the um, diagram. Next one is the factors affecting temperature and rainfall. When we talk about the climate, there are two important things: temperature and rainfall. Temperature is the amount of degree of heatness in any area, and rainfall is the amount of the water that condenses and reaches the ground. So there are following factors that impact or affect the temperature and rainfall. Prevailing winds. First of all, the winds. Winds are the most important thing because winds have the capacity to take the temperature, to take the pressure, to take the gases from one place to another. So the prevailing wind direction is the direction from which the wind blows most often. For example, if the wind moves from east to west, then it is going to be called the easterlies, and these will have particular. There would be a particular characteristic that they would follow with. For example, it is a cold wind or it is a hot wind. So it does make a lot of difference. For example, if the prevailing wind is a easterly and it is moving from the area of east to west, it means it is bringing the warm air with it. So the because the eastern areas usually receive the sunlight first, so it is going to take warm air with it, and warm air is going to meet with the cold air and make the atmosphere of any area stabilize. So ये एक prevailing wind phenomena है, ठीक है? The temperature of the prevailing wind is affected by the area it blows from and over. When prevailing wind blow from warm bodies of water, they often bring rain because they are going from the warm area to the cool area. So they stabilize the low pressure and high pressure as we discussed in the last video. So that is how the prevailing winds are formed. Second one is the distance from the sea. Distance from the sea influences both temperature and rainfall. So when we look at the temperature, the sea gains and loses its heat much more slowly than the land. So when we look at this relationship, I can also elaborate it to you further with the help of the notes as well. So if we look at the notes, this would give us a more brief detail of what we are looking at. So we are discussing the different factors where we discuss latitude, seasonal difference, altitude aspect, and then we have uh, there is a little activity quiz activities that I've added for all. Okay, distance from the sea controls temperature, extreme, and moisture. So let's have a look at it in detail. So, continent. Continentality is the one word that we should know. How far a place is from the ocean is also called a distance from the sea. Water heats up and cools down slowly. On land heats up and cools down quickly. So this is the difference we see on uh, the water and on the ocean. On the land and on the ocean. That when there is a water body, heats up quickly, but it cools down slowly. But land, it heats up uh, slowly and cools down quickly. Comparison table would be like this. In summer temperature, there are few things discussed here. Featured coastal areas near sea or inland place means far from the sea. So summer temperature is cooler in coastal areas. Sea keeps it mild. And inland areas in summer would be hotter because land heats up quickly. So this is what we are trying to understand. Second, winter temperature. In coastal areas, it will be warmer because sea keeps it mild. Sea keeps everything mild. But in inland places, it would be colder because land cools quickly. Daily temperature, if we look at it, it would be small in the coastal areas because waves, wind keeps everything moderate. And daily temperature in the inland places would be large because there would be extreme changes. Sometimes there would be sudden heating up, sometimes there would be sudden cooling of any area. And then rainfall in coastal areas would be higher because the moisture from the sea and cool air or warm air are meeting with each other. This rate is generously higher in the coastal areas and it would be lower in the inland places because the air loses moisture. तो यहाँ पे the whole purpose behind telling us or making us understand the distance from the sea वो ये है कि how the waves or how the air or how the weather or climate affect होते हैं when we talk about distance from the sea यानी land के ऊपर और water के ऊपर temperature का rainfall का pattern different होता है. This is the purpose behind understanding this whole thing. फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर हम पाकिस्तान की मिसाल लेते हैं तो कराची ऑन द कोस्ट है तो इसलिए समर में टेम्परेचर हाई होता है विंटर में लो होता है एनुअल रेनफॉल हमें इतनी देखने को मिलती है मुल्तान बहुत दूर है सी से और 800 किलोमीटर इनलैंड है तो वहां पे समर जो टेम्परेचर है वो बहुत ज्यादा हाई होता है और विंटर में बहुत ज्यादा लो होता है और रेनफॉल भी जनरली कम है हमारे पास तो डिफरेंट डिफरेंट एरियाज की एग्जाम्पल दी हुई है जो फैक्टर नंबर 3 है विच इम्पैक्ट्स द रेनफॉल एंड टेम्परेचर वो है ओशन करंट्स. Ocean currents are large masses of the ocean water that moves in a specific direction, just like a river in the sea. So when we look at it, there are two types of current. Currents usually are warm currents and cold currents. जो warm currents होते हैं, they are above 20 degrees high. और जो cold currents होते हैं, they are usually below 10 degrees. So warm currents are the when air warms, warmer climate is there and more rainfall. So cold current, whenever they move, they cool the air, cooler the climate is usually seen and they create less rainfall. So this is what we see. If you look at the world examples, there's a Gulf Stream. The currents there are warm. Location is North Atlantic Ocean, and the effect that it creates is make Western Europe mild. California current they are cold. They are on the west coast of USA and makes California coast cool. So the reason behind warm current and cold current is that because they both interact and both are helpful to regulate the temperature that we see. They are both very important. So moving on. Next up we have mountain barrier. Now mountain barrier is also a very important factor if we look at it through the book. So this is what we are discussing right now. We are discussing the mountain barrier. Let's have a look at it that how mountain barrier affects the temperature and rainfall of any area. So when we talk, I want to show you from the simple diagram which is given right there that what I mean by the mountain barrier. As we know that this diagram is showing us the half of the mountain. If I make a full mountain, then when the winds blow, sometimes there's a barrier created in front of the um, फेस्ड बाय द विंड्स मतलब समटाइम्स विंड्स को एक बैरियर फेस करना पड़ता है होता क्या है कि जो वेव्स और जो एयर आ रही होती है वो बहुत ह्यूमिड होती है एंड इट इज अबाउट टू डू द रेनफॉल लेकिन फॉर सम रीजन क्योंकि माउंटेन की हाइट इतनी ज्यादा होती है वो जो सारी एयर होती है वो उसी जगह पे कंडेंस हो जाती है और सारी की सारी बारिश एक साइड पे हो जाती है माउंटेन की which is called the windward side, जिसे हम विंडवर्ड साइड बोलते हैं. दूसरी साइड बिल्कुल ड्राई रहती है, विच इज कॉल्ड द लीवर्ड साइड. ये एक माउंटेन बैरियर क्रिएट हो जाता है, जिसकी वजह से माउंटेन इज डिवाइडेड इनटू टू टाइप्स, विंडवर्ड एंड लीवर्ड साइड. इसको बोलते हैं माउंटेन बैरियर. नाउ लेट्स हैव अ लुक एट द नोट्स. माउंटेन बैरियर, इसमें जो सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट चीज है दैट इज ओरोग्राफिक रेनफॉल. रेनफॉल दैट अकर्स व्हेन मॉइस्ट एयर इज फोर्स्ड to rise over a mountain, cools and condenses. वही बात जो मैंने try to explain it here, that when we have a mountainous area and the air is there and air is condensing at one side of the mountain, is forced to be there, pressure to be there, and it condenses and do the rainfall on one side of the mountain. That's called a orographic rain. So when we look at it, इसके steps यहाँ पे there are steps given here. उनको यहाँ पे explain किया हुआ है. Warm moist air blows, air is forced to rise over, it moves upward as usual, and then it cools there and condenses in certain area. तो वो इसको हम कहते हैं the orographic rain. तो उसमें जो windward side होती है faces the wind, air rises, cool, condenses rain. और जो दूसरी side होती है वो rain shadow effect create करती है. Second side is called the leeward side. Rain shadow effect क्या होता है? The dry land on the leeward sheltered side of the mountain range that receives very little rainfall. So if you try to explain it with the help of the diagram, there would be mountain. So the one side is receiving all the rain and other side is deserted. So windward side and leeward side. So if we look at the example, for example, Himalaya, Pakistan, we have southern slope which receives more rainfall, and then the northern areas they are more drier, they are leeward side. So it is because of the wind movement. Next topic of this chapter is world climate regions. Let's have a look at different climate regions we have. Now we have up till now we have seen different climatic areas, difference between climate and weather. Then we have seen what are the factors that affect the temperature and rainfall and pressure of any area. And now we are looking at different climatic zones that are available in the world. For example, there are few things that we will discuss: climatic region, temperature, rainfall, location, and example. First one is the polar area. This is a very wide classification of the climate. It contains very cold areas below 10-degree average of the temperature of that area. Rainfall there is very low because it's mostly there's no interaction between warm air, cool air. It is usually only the cold air. So location is near North and South Pole, and examples are Antarctica and Greenland. The second one is temperate. It is moderate. It faces four seasons, just like Pakistan. Rainfall there is medium to high, and location is mid-latitude, 30 to 60 degrees. And examples are UK, Japan, New York, Pakistan, and all these areas. Then there are tropical regions, hot all year, above 18 degrees the temperature. Their rainfall is high to very high, and they are near equator, means from 0 to 23.5 degrees. And the example are Brazil and Indonesia. Then we have arid areas. Arid areas, hot days, cold nights, very low, below 250 millimeter rainfall per year. In Pakistan, mostly areas including Balochistan lies in this area. So, since Pakistan has such a huge, large land we have, which is facing this issue, so we identify Pakistan into arid or semi-arid region. But usually, it is widely considered as a temperate zone. But if we look at it precisely, then we can call it arid and semi-arid. Very low rainfall is there, often near 30 degrees latitude, Sahara Desert, Arabian Desert. So these are all the areas included there. Middle East, you can say. So Balochistan, since it connects with the Iran, so usually faces this kind of temperature. Then next up we have the Mediterranean area. Warm, hot, dry summer, mild, wet winters, low to medium rainfall faces in the winter, and around Mediterranean Sea. This is seen. Spain, Italy, and California are the affected areas. Next up we have mountain. Mountain face a completely different kind of temperature. They are colder with elevation because they have usually a larger elevation. Varies rainfall varies because more at higher elevation and lesser in the base areas, and it is usually seen in the mountain ranges worldwide. Himalayas, Alps, Andes, Rockies, all these mountain face this kind of behavior. So these were the climatic zones. Then each climate zone had different details, which are given in this notes very clearly.